Hello everyone, welcome to the series summarizing the novel Lord of the Mysteries on the AniMonolith channel. Continuing previous parts, Klein gathers in the mysterious space above the gray fog with the Hanged Man and Justice to share and receive information. Audrey asks about acting to digest potions, and Klein explains the process using an analogy of infiltrating a castle. Alger then shares valuable information about the Antigonos family and the two blasphemy slates, revealing their ancient, powerful history in connection to mystical pathways. Audrey and Alger also discuss Emperor Roselle, the paths of the gods, and the downfall of significant families, including the Antigonos, due to conflicts with powerful forces like the Church of the Evernight Goddess. The gathering concludes with casual updates from Audrey about a political proposal she influenced and a cautious remark from Alger regarding the rise of secret organizations. Klein maintains his enigmatic image as Mr. Fool and ends the session, preparing for future experiments with the ritual and ensuring continued engagement with his followers. Klein then turned to gaze at the high-backed chair at the head of the table, focusing on the constellation symbol there. The constellation stars formed a strange emblem, one not found in the mysticism symbols Klein had studied. As he scrutinized it, Klein recognized the pupilless eye, symbolizing mystery, and the twisted rope, symbolizing transformation. Both symbols were missing parts and overlapped to create a new emblem. Klein began pondering a previously unnoticed detail: what were the origins of the palace's design, the table, and the chairs? Initially, Klein had only thought of them in the simplest terms, without specifying any details. This realization made him consider that their current form might be the result of an optimization, a primal template, or even a reflection of reality. Realizing this anomaly, Klein carefully examined the area surrounding the divine hall in the gray fog but found no creatures or strange phenomena. After concluding his inspection, he left the gray fog and returned to his familiar room. In the Queen District of Backlund, Audrey continued to contemplate Mr. Fool's true identity based on the hints and the incantation. However, she soon gave up and shifted into a spectator state to observe the maids in the mansion. As if sensing something, Audrey turned around and noticed her dog, Susie, also staring at the maid in the same way she had just been observing her. Meanwhile, Alger had returned to the Blue Avenger, which sailed on the Sonia Sea. Like Audrey, Alger pondered Mr. Fool's identity, speculating that he might be an ancient entity. Meanwhile, Mr. Fool Klein was preoccupied with recording and memorizing important events and details from the past week. Once his notes were complete, Klein had to destroy all evidence immediately to prevent anyone from discovering his secrets. Although his seer abilities helped, Klein still wanted to refine his skills to meet the potion's requirements, relying on practice to perfect them. This necessity led Klein to head to the divination club promptly. Upon arriving at the club, Klein noticed that Angelica was in a much better mood than the last time he had seen her. As he had observed, Angelica immediately thanked him for the advice to find a way to vent her sorrow after he had read her fortune. Seeing Angelica so cheerful and relaxed, Klein smiled and said, "It's my honor to be able to help you." While speaking, he felt his spirituality become more active and at ease. Klein wondered if this might be what acting as a seer, as the potion required, felt like, being a fortune teller who could genuinely assist those seeking readings, perhaps reaching a certain level of proficiency. As he pondered this, Klein casually tapped his glabella twice. Although he tried to make this action appear like a natural habit, Klein still felt that the motion of opening and closing spirit vision could be too obvious to others. The problem was that he couldn't think of a better alternative at the moment. Since he had only recently become a seer and his spirituality hadn't reached its peak, he needed to use a point on his body where he could stimulate his spirituality to activate the switch. The glabella was a relatively good choice for this. Thus, Klein resolved to work on digesting the potion to become a true seer. By then, he believed that the process of toggling the switch would be much easier. Klein then casually asked Angelica whether Hannes Vincent was currently at the club. Angelica informed him that Vincent had accepted an invitation to give a lecture at a divination organization in Anmatport. At that moment, Klein spotted a familiar figure, Glassy, who had given him his first fortune-telling reading at the club. When Glassy saw Klein, he was overjoyed and repeatedly praised Klein's exceptional fortune-telling skills. Glassy even expressed regret for not believing Klein's warnings initially, almost losing his life because of it. He added that, fortunately, a skilled apothecary near his home had provided his wife with a miraculous prescription that ultimately saved him. Being a future member of the Nighthawks, Klein was particularly sensitive to mentions of miraculous doctors and prescriptions, as they could pertain to the beyonder world. He asked Glassy for more details. Facing Klein's curiosity, Glassy quickly explained. The apothecary said the medicine came from a tribe near Renborg. Klein then asked for more information and the apothecary's address in case he ever needed to make contact. Klein knew that modern medical advancements were only just taking shape in this world, and some illnesses remained untreatable. It would be reassuring to know a skilled apothecary. Glassy mentioned that the apothecary's name was Lawson Darkwill, who owned a small shop called Lawson's Tribal Pharmacy at 18 Vlad Street in the Eastern District. After their conversation ended, Glassy asked Klein to read his fortune again, assuring him that he would pay in full. They both headed to the Amber Crystal Room, where Klein asked Glassy what issue he wanted to have divined. Glassy explained that he wanted to know if his significant investment would go smoothly, as failure would put his family in a difficult position. He admitted that he had done a tarot reading for himself and found the result favorable. In response, Klein suggested he describe the investment plan in detail and provide his personal information, along with any details about the other party, to conduct an astrological reading. Glassy thought for a moment before explaining that Mr. Lenevis had discovered a large, high-quality iron ore deposit in the Hornacis mountain range. He used his savings to buy the land and hired a professional survey company, which confirmed its potential. To fund the mining, Lenevis founded a steel company, planning to secure a bank loan and issue shares to raise capital. As the project was still in a covert preparatory stage, the potential returns looked promising. Recently, Klein had been reading newspapers and, with his knowledge as a history graduate, was aware that this world did have stocks, a concept introduced by Emperor Roselle. During his conquest of the southern continent, Roselle had formed the West Ballum Company, issuing shares to solve financial issues and reap initial colonial profits. The high returns from that success led to similar ventures later, like railway stocks, mining stocks, and steam exploitation stocks. Some succeeded, while others failed, leading to the formation of Backlund's early stock exchange. Emperor Roselle had also introduced government bonds and investment trusts, which had become a stable form of investment, offering annual returns of up to 4%. Hearing the potential for immense profit if Glassy's investment succeeded, Klein asked if Lenevis was trustworthy. Glassy said he had verified Lenevis's assets and business licenses. More importantly, Lenevis's office displayed photos of him with Sir William and the mayor. However, Klein wasn't quick to trust Lenevis. On Earth, he knew countless sophisticated scams required constant vigilance. Still, Klein could only draw an astrological chart based on the key information Glassy provided. He then concluded, "You probably sense it too, this venture appears prosperous on the surface but conceals a dark abyss beneath. My reading suggests you should avoid it." Glassy, however, wasn't entirely convinced. Faced with his skepticism, Klein could only feel resigned. As a seer, he could offer guidance, but he couldn't make decisions for others. After Klein finished divining the star chart for Glassy, Angelica came in to inform him that a guest was waiting to meet him. Klein soon discovered that the visitor was none other than Joyce Meyer, the fiancée of Anna. He recognized Joyce because he had previously seen his appearance through a dream divination. Seeing Klein's reaction, Joyce was astonished and asked if Klein had predicted his visit as well. Klein, with a sly look, vaguely replied, "I have your detailed information. For a seer, this is enough." The cryptic response left Joyce in awe. Joyce also noticed that Klein referred to himself as a seer instead of a fortune teller, adding to the air of mystery surrounding him. When they entered the Golden Crystal Room, Klein discreetly observed Joyce's aura and noted that his physical and emotional state seemed relatively stable. Klein then asked Joyce to recount his dream because he had asked Klein to interpret his dream earlier. With a serious expression, Joyce explained that since he had arrived at Mad Harbor aboard the Alfalfa, he'd experienced the same dream every night. The dream, filled with fear, seemed to be a lingering shadow from the terrible accident. Although he considered seeing a psychologist, he suspected it was more than an ordinary dream, noting that, unlike typical dreams, his had no variations and remained unchanged each night. After listening, Klein tapped his glabella thoughtfully and calmly stated that recurring nightmares were messages from the spiritual self, hints from the divine. Noticing Joyce's confusion, Klein explained that his subconscious still retained crucial details about the accident that had been overlooked. Amidst the chaos and fear, Joyce had focused only on the negative emotions, missing significant elements that his spiritual self was now trying to bring to his attention through the dream. Joyce covered his mouth and thought for a moment before describing his dream. He recounted falling from the Medicago into a crimson ocean that looked like rotting blood. Just as he fell, someone on the boat, whose appearance he couldn't discern but who was incredibly strong, pulled him back. Joyce also tried to save a passenger, Eunice Kim, to stop him from falling into the sea, but due to the man's weight and struggle, Joyce had to let go, helplessly watching as Eunice screamed and fell into the blood-red water. Then, the person holding Joyce let go, and he flailed desperately for something to grab but found nothing, falling rapidly until he woke up, drenched in sweat. Klein then recalled how his spiritual self had once provided him with clues about the whereabouts of the Antigonos family notebook. Of course, with his beyonder abilities and knowledge of mysticism, Klein was more sensitive to interpreting such hints than ordinary people. Klein paused before asking Joyce if Eunice Kim, the man who fell into the blood-red sea after Joyce released him, had pleaded for his life on the boat but still couldn't escape death. At this, Joyce began to justify his actions, detailing Kim's wrongdoings. Klein, however, pressed further, questioning why, if Joyce saw letting Kim die as an act of justice, he felt regret that made the dream replay that moment over and over. Joyce became flustered, unable to explain his feelings. Klein urged him to remember everything related to Eunice Kim, such as what he mentioned, the content of his pleas, or his demeanor. Since unable to fully see Joyce's dream, Klein guided him using his observations. He asked if Joyce believed that keeping Eunice Kim alive might have revealed or explained something. Joyce frowned and, after a pause, admitted that he had felt the conflict on the boat had escalated too quickly, as if hidden dark desires had erupted uncontrollably. It all seemed unnatural to him. He realized that he had wanted to interrogate Kim to understand why he had behaved as if possessed.